Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NRG series in Lansing, Michigan this weekend. I'm Mason Clark, joined by my co-host Ross Merriam, and we're going to cut straight to the feature match here. We had some small technical difficulties, but our players are already underway. We don't want to miss any more of the action. On your left here, Nagara playing the Ephemerate Tron list versus Noah Smith on Claw Gates. Ross, talk to me a bit about this matchup.
This is a really interesting one. The Tron deck is a sort of 4 or 5 color. I guess this build is 4 colors, and we're really using Prophetic Prism as a way to turn the incredible colorless mana generation from the Urza lands into the colored mana necessary to cast these various spells. And then you'll see things like Ghostly Flicker and Ephemerate to blink various artifacts and creatures that draw cards, and that's its main card draw engine. And then that's the way it's generating card advantage, and you have a little bit of interaction with various counter spells and removal, and then eventually you win the game with something like Mizian Elder or Murmuring Mystic. But really, it's all about blinking Mnemonic Wall, blinking Cryogen Relic, blinking Prophetic Prism to draw a bunch of cards as you interact with your opponent and generate a huge mana advantage from the Urza's lands. So it is really a control deck.
And speaking of control decks, on the other side here, Noah Smith playing Claw Gates. Can you explain this one for the people at home who have not played against the old Claw Gates deck before?
Yeah, very much a classic sort of blue-white control deck, but the cheap creatures look kind of strange. Squadron Hawk we've seen in control decks before, way back years ago in Standard. Sacred Cat doing its best Squadron Hawk impression, offering a lot more bodies. And they exist to take advantage of Basilisk Gate, which is kind of this deck's win condition. So you have a lot of other gates in the mana base, and then Basilisk Gate can pump those small creatures and really let you turn the corner and increase your clock. But beyond that, it's a lot of typical Azorius control cards. We have Counterspell, we have Brainstorm, we have Dispel, we have Lorien revealed in the mana base, the Modern Age, which both provides card advantage and becomes another creature to pump up with Basilisk Gate. Journey to Nowhere is your main removal spell. There's also Thraben Charm. And then Prismatic Strands is a nice one. Just for, this is a pauper format staple, really, and one that plays really well with Sacred Cat and Squadron Hawk.
Yep, big old fog effect, essentially. As we see Prophetic Prism come down here for Dustin.
Yeah. So I think in this matchup, in terms of dynamics, there are so many powerful late game plays from the Tron deck, and only the 4 counter spells in game 1 for Claw Gates, that I think they have to take a more aggressive approach to the game. Really, get some creatures down, establish a bit of a clock, try to close out the game with Basilisk Gate a little bit faster than maybe they're used to, and use the counter spells to stop any big things that happen over that time frame. Because eventually they're going to run out, and Nagara can set up these Mnemonic Wall loops in the end game that are really difficult to beat.
Yeah, let's pull up Mnemonic Wall just so people who haven't seen this sort of effect before can get a look at it as Ghostly Flicker is getting cast here, targeting said wall. So when this enters, return target insert a sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. You're going to use that on Ghostly Flicker, which flickers it. Very similar to Ephemerate and Eternal Witness, if you've seen that before in Modern. And so now you're going to get a card here from the Prophetic Prism. You're going to get this flicker back. And then, with those little sorcerers, from Final Fantasy, you can also ping your opponent. So it's kind of all encompassing over here.
Yes, it's 3 mana, draw a card, ping you. I can cast that over and over and over again. Eventually you get to the second wall, then you can start flickering 2 walls, rebuying these other spells from your graveyard, and it gets out of hand.
All right. Brainstorm to start things off from Noah. Classic Brainstorm into Sacred Cat. You can see the Squadron Hawks go back on the deck here. You can then shuffle your deck with a Squadron Hawk. Also get those cards back in hand if you want.
Yes. Incredible synergy between Brainstorm and Hawk.
It is really, really good. As it looks like Noah's thinking about maybe wanting to use the gate. Let's think about all the options here. Island cycling. Grabbing basic island here. Does have a full grip already in hand.
Full grip, but he's definitely behind the 8 ball in this game. Nagara has set up really every part of the engine. Has Tron, has a ton of mana, has Prophetic Prism to turn the colorless mana into colored mana, has Mnemonic Wall, Ghostly Flicker. And there's not a ton of ways to get in the way of this. A Journey to Nowhere on the wall would actually help. There we go.
All right. So that's pretty big. You were just saying that's going to be helpful. And now we can get in the air with the Modern Age flipped. And boom, Sacred Cat. Which we're joking a bit about now, but if you can't like kind of infinitely ping, we can buff this cat a whole lot with lifelink here. You're gonna undo multiple turns of these like incidental pings that you just don't really care about.
Yeah, one of the sort of limiting factors in Pauper is the strength of players' end games. There's all these card advantage loops and a ton of ways to draw cards, but there's not that really big over the top effect. You don't get to play Emeralds. You don't get to play these giant creatures that will completely dominate a game. You have to really sort of out attrition your opponent down to nothing, and that can be hard to do. Or use these weird pinger effects to kind of slowly kill your opponent. And the Sacred Cat plus Gate can really put a wrench into those plans.
All right, we're going to Ghostly Flicker. All right, we're going to get another token here and flicker the wall so we can pick back up.
Yeah, so that's a great way to start increasing the clock.
Yeah.
So start making more wizards. Now every spell is 2 damage. We can flicker again, target wall. And do we want a third wizard or another card from the prism?
Yeah, I think we should have been flickering the wizard even before, because our hand is so gassed up right now. Even before this all started happening, there's just like, yeah, let's just kill our opponent and force them to have to use their mana on the Sacred Cat. I like this a lot here from Dustin.
Yeah, this is awesome. Now your damage output is increasing faster than linear. And when that happens, you win very quickly.
Yep. If I was with a different commentator, I would say exponential growth, but I know that you know what that word means, so I won't trick you here.
It's also not exponential growth.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. This is why I don't do it with you. But if I'm with Devin, Doomway, he backs me up. He's like, that's not what that word means. So I'm ride or die with Mason right here. Ross, you're a man of the people and the truth of what the words mean, so I gotta be careful with you. I gotta use the words right. As it looks like Squadron Hawk is wanting to maybe come down here. Very awkward spot for Noah. Can't undo some of this, damage by buffing up the Sacred Cat like we talked about last turn, but all right, we're hawking.
Yeah. It's also just not very many powerful sweepers in the format. So all these wizards sitting around, in Azorius, you don't have the mini sweepers like Electrickery and effects like that. Kirk Clan Shaman. So we normally associate Azorius control decks in other formats with sweepers, with those Supreme Verdicts, Wrath of Gods, any of those kinds of effects, but not here in Pauper, and that's a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
This wizard army is only growing bigger.
All right, I think that's our 4th gate. So if we were to activate the Basilica Gate, our cat would be a 5/5. Looks like we're just attacking the air. And maybe holding up our mana. Attack in here for 2. Core Skyfisher. Pick up the Squadron Hawk. Yeah, he's saying we're going to pick up that Journey to Nowhere. And Ross, this might be lethal if we don't have a way to interact with this Ghostly Flicker. There's a lot of mana in play.
Yeah, so you're going to start dealing 3, then 4, then 5. So 3 spells will be enough.
All right.
And yeah, with another Prophetic Prism, now there's 3 blue mana, so we can Ghostly Flicker 3 times.
Yeah.
For 9 mana. He has 9 mana with all the Tron lands.
5 mana. Looks like we're going to start with a Lorien Revealed. Just maybe play around there being some sort of way to interact.
Dispel on the Ghostly Flicker, maybe. So try to play non-instance. Just needs 2 more spells. There's an Impulse, and it can also play Flicker, and if one of them gets dispelled, who cares?
Yep, and that's game.
Yeah. Noah Smith knows that the Ghostly Flicker is in hand, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if it wasn't the impulse, probably likely to get you there either way. So that's going to do it there for game number 1 of Pauper. That Ephemerate Tron list looking pretty exciting. Looks like the modern gameplay action is going on. So let's check out this Esper mid-range deck versus Affinity.
Esper mid-range, one of the premier decks in this format. Affinity, sort of historically one of the oldest, but has come back after a period of dormancy. Checking out the list, this is so there's kind of 2 different Affinity decks now in Modern. There's Tomio Emery Cutter lists that have been around for a few months, and then there's the more recent lists that are all in on Pinnacle Emissary and Kappa Cannoneer. That is the list that we see from Matt Sims.
All right.
Definitely the more explosive build of the deck.
As we join here, looks like Eric has a couple of different options going on. We've got a couple Solitudes, a Quantum Riddler, and a Witch Enchanter versus Urza Saga and 2 Baubles. And it looks like Eric is going to attack and flicker the Mishra's Bauble. All right, and at 2 damage, it gets hit for Matt Smith.
Flicker the Bauble means that a construct there would have just traded with the Philia if they make the construct in combat, so doesn't force Eric into a weird spot where he has to Solitude before he's ready.
Yeah, I also plays around like you could Quantum Riddler and then flicker it and sort of just be like whatever on my Philia. You could even maybe Solitude the construct if you really want to get into things. But this plays around Metallic Rebuke a little bit too, which there it is. It looks like we've declared a card from our hand and it's getting rebuked.
Let's see what it is.
Clarion
Conquer. Yeah, that's an important one to rebuke.
Yep. And now the Mishra's Bauble comes back. We draw for turn. This Urza Saga is going to tick up to chapter 3. Yeah. We're probably going to see either a construct or a floating of the mana.
Notably, Sims not sacrificing either Bauble on the end step. So he has plans for either more rebukes that he wants to be able to improvise. I think there's a Kappa Cannoneer in hand, or maybe just wants his constructs to be big. The constructs are awkward in the face of Philia. Philia gets to just blink them out. So unless he has an answer to the dog, the constructs don't represent too much value.
Activate.
Still going for it.
Might be a situation too where, don't have anything else you're really going to do this turn.
Yeah. Could also have a Galvblast in hand. This is game 2. They're not in the main, but 2 in the sideboard. Also 2 Dismembers that could be in the deck.
Mox Opal is the search off Urza Saga.
And that was another reason to keep the Baubles around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The Urza Saga into Mox Opal sort of mini Ancient Tomb play is always so impressive from these decks. The Springleaf Drum stuff we've seen in the past was good, but always required a little bit more work. And now that's just like, you're probably artifact heavy deck. Just gets to do it as Shivan Reef hits the battlefield. Speaking of hits, Dom Harvey there gets hit by Gabriel Roberts, down a game on VV Cauldron to Azorius Control. Witch Enchanter coming into play.
That was one of the few decks that we saw yesterday in the Standard Showdown stand up to the Cauldron deck. Azorius Control had a good showing. It was the only non-VV deck in the top 8. So.
All right. Metallic Rebuke on that Witch Enchanter. This Philia is going to get rid of this construct just like you talked about. Brutal moment here and attacking for the 2 and a passing of the turn.
And now I believe there's a Kappa Cannoneer left over, but at this point, Eric is up to 4 mana, so a Solitude after he untaps can handle this.
Yeah, and there is a Solitude in hand. We're going to stick things out here for a second. Looks like Eric might be winning this game. Fatal Push was the draw for turn.
Now, this Affinity deck also has quite a bit of card advantage from Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor. There's a full 4 copies of both in the deck. So if Matt Sims can chain a couple of those together, he can get back into this game. But he needs some good top decks, and he needs them right now.
All right, Phileas is attacking in. Let's see what we have here. Looks like maybe a colorless spell if we're starting with the Shivan Reef. Thinking better about maybe thinking about casting some other card, maybe popping some Baubles. Obviously, if you pop baubles, you lose Opal. All right, Shivan Reef, Opal, Thoughtcast. Drawn 2 cards. Darksteel Citadel is one of them. I think that is the new warp creature in hand. Pinnacle Emissary. This card has been very impressive, but in points like this in the game, it's not like it's awful, but it's definitely not at its best. You've played a lot of your artifact cards, and luckily you can refuel with cards like Bobble, but
instead of opting not to play the emissaries, maybe another rebuke in hand.
yeah. Ooh, Surveil Land, unable to warp the Riddler. Looks like we maybe saw too many cards here. Let's go hop over to Popper, since there's going to be a judge call. That one's going to probably be a pretty interesting game, but it's going to probably take a little bit. As looks like Dustin here has 2 of the Tron lands in hand. And a
Impulse. So, these games are not going to start very quickly. Both decks, playing for a little bit of a longer game. The Modern Age will eventually give Noah some pressure, which is important.
Discarding Sacred Cat to that Modern Age feels like cheating a little bit. Okay, it looks like we have a... So this is one of those gates that makes a color, and then you name a second color, and then it taps for that as well. We've seen this in like Jumpstart packs a lot too, and just in this deck like we talked about before, you just need a lot of gates. So the reason there's a mountain under that land is because it's representing red. Technically not something you're supposed to do here on coverage, but we're going to let it slide for right now unless it gets out of hand.
There's a light red splash in the list for blasts in the sideboard. Just such important sideboard cards. 3 red elemental blast and 1 pyro blast for Noah Smith. Can help answer this ghostly flicker mnemonic wall engine.
Yep. Impulse picks up, I believe, the missing Tron piece, assuming we have matching art for all our Tron pieces.
That'll play.
Yeah.
This is not a deck that is trying to get Tron super early with expedition maps and things like that. It's more of a control deck. We'll get Tron as the game goes and you have the card selection. So when you have it early, that can be a really huge advantage. But notably, none of the artifacts that filter colorless mana into colored mana. No Prophetic Prism, no Energy Refractor. That's actually a key card for utilizing the extra mana from Tron, because this is also not a deck that plays colorless cards. It's all colored cards. So even with Tron, may not be able to deploy his spells that quickly if he doesn't have those key artifacts.
All right, the Modern Age transforms, and then we had another little looting effect. Draw discard. Picked up a Pyro. Got Counterspell in hand too. So we're going to discard that Counterspell.
It's one of his better cards in the matchup, but with all the blasts in hand, maybe a little less necessary.
Main phase Brainstorm. Hits a gate. So we're going to put back Counterspell as the first one. Pretty happy to do that. Like you mentioned, we do have a lot of blasts in hand, so... Does seem like I don't want to use my Counterspell. I guess Counterspell in this matchup, it's weird, right? Because a lot of their cards in the deck are blue that you care about, but not everything's blue. It's an interesting one. All right. And now gate for the turn. I assume that gate enters tapped. Almost all the gates do.
Yeah, I think we're using a gate to filter some mana and make white.
Yeah, but we just played that gate from our hand that we use for mana.
That one does not. Heap gate enters untapped.
Of course. It's the one gate that enters untapped, obviously. Why would the gates...
so does Basilisk Gate.
Oh, Basilisk Gate does too? All right, well, that plays. You know what? Maybe Boulder's Gate gates are different.
The Guild Gates and the Choose a Color Gates enter tapped.
Okay. Well, now they have some sort of judge question. All right, send me over to Modern for a second. I ain't got time to look at judges. All right, let's see. Meanwhile, since we've been gone, Fatal Push now on the Affinity deck. And it looks like there's probably a Quantum Riddler that got exiled to Dysphalia. Yep. Yeah. Draw 2.
Now the card advantage is online for Eric Azeri, and the Affinity deck is going to have a hard time catching up. Even if he draws Thought Casts and Thoughts Monitors, there's not a lot of artifacts in play to make those castable at a low mana cost.
Plains the pickup. Psychic Frog the play. Flicker the Frog.
This Affinity deck has to get its work done early. The late game for Esper midrange is much, much stronger. Way more card advantage available to them. These really powerful flicker synergies. The Affinity deck doesn't have the tools to catch back up, really.
And that's going to do it here for the Modern match. We'll head back over to Popper. See kind of how they're doing. Looks like we're actually going to go to Standard. Production loves VV Cauldron. They said, don't you too. Well, maybe it was the judge call ruling. It's probably more of that one. I'm throwing in the bus for no reason. As Stockup's getting resolved here, Ross. Looks like a rest in peace in hand.
Sorry, our judge call on Pauper got appealed, as is your right.
Yeah. I like this from Gabriel. Land rest in peace. That's what I was looking for. I found it. Dom Harvey here.
Yeah, Dom has the VV naturally, so the rest in peace will stop Harmonize on Winter Night Stories. So the craziest things that could happen this turn are locked down, unless there's a Flood Maw.
All right, land in the Quantum Riddler, draw a card. Of note, Dom did win one of these games. In between us talking and everything else, we talked about how Dom lost game one here, but has won the first sideboard game.
Yeah, found a Winter Night Stories off the Quantum Riddler, so he's ready to start drawing cards and pumping this VV next turn. But now Roberts gets to untap and have a say about it.
All right, consult the star charts for the old 6 cards. Yeah. Not kick though, so we only get 1.
Likely digging for a Day of Judgment here to clean up both these creatures. So wanted to leave up the 4 mana available for that sweeper.
Makes a lot of sense. Looks like in hand we have Voice of Victory, a null, and an unknown for Gabriel. All right, we do have a Get Lost, I think was the pick, because we did not find the Day of Judgment.
And you're likely going to aim it at the Riddler, but the VV is still a threat.
Oh, and Profs off the top here for Dom. Very powerful.
Profs, Winter Night Stories, put 4 counters on the VV. It'll get 2 from the 2 spells.
All right, a null is going to come down. We do get the VV counter and ping, though.
But no Prof shenanigans. That definitely goes a long way towards limiting this turn. Now, does
Dom has land for turn still?
Yeah, maybe considering using the VV mana to animate the untapped Soulstone and making another attacker this turn.
Yeah, plays really hard into Day of Judgment, but does sort of put your opponent probably on a sort of 2-turn clock, right?
Yeah, and Dom can surmise from the previous turn's play that unkick consult that Roberts is digging for Day and then didn't cast Day, so likely doesn't have it.
Yeah. I was curious if Dom was going to try to win Night Stories and then use VV mana to try and find a Profs, but just attacking in here, holding up the end of turn, activate the Soulstone Sanctuary. Voice of Victory looks to be the quick play here from Gabriel. And double Get Lost once we resolve.
And no responses here because of the voice.
Yep, and 4 maps for Dom.
So just be an end step activate Soulstone.
Yep.
It can get big. It can go exploring.
Yeah, it's going to be really huge. It could get massive or maybe save Dom from flooding out this game. We'll have to see how it all starts. We are going to stay here for a second as this looks to be potentially the deciding game of the match. If Dom ends up losing here, we're going to have at least the rest of game 2, maybe even game 3 from our Popper matchup. Looks like Broadside Barrage is in hand and maybe wanting to be the first spell we cast. Getting rid of that Voice of Victory.
Finds a FOMO.
Not so bad. It looks like we're going to discard a Into the Flood Maw.
Yeah, had two of those in hand, so one to spare. Now the land can be discarded to the FOMO if he wants, or do we want to crack some maps? Get more damage in.
I do like cracking at least the first one. Let's see what we had on top there. Ooh, NRG series branding's covering it up, but I can tell you it's blue. This is interesting. Ross, do you just, pop play your land for turn, pop 2 more maps, and attack in here for 6?
Well, the fear missing out isn't worth a ton because of the rest in peace, right?
Yeah.
It's just a vanilla 2/3. So yeah, I kind of like getting value from the maps when you can.
So Dom bend the Spell Pierce, which was the first card, hit an island, then popped the land, another map after playing that land, excuse me. It was another land that went to hand. Now has popped the last map, and it's Wild Ride on top of the deck, which weirdly, actually not a terrible one to have in your hand as a way to kind of play through a Day of Judgment type effect. And
multiple get loss have been used. You expect your opponent doesn't have Day of Judgment in hand. They're kind of low on cards, so there's a good chance this Soulstone is going to continue getting in. And so that'll really quickly put Gabriel Roberts into the range where Wild Ride is lethal. He's already down to 10. His body language is terrible. It looks like he just has nothing.
So it looks like Spiral of Canal was one of the lands picked up by Dom off the maps. And now has a couple different options. Could animate the Soulstone. Could Winter Night Stories. Could play FOMO. Yeah, it looks like we're just going to shove here. I like this. Attack in for 8.
Dom senses weakness, and he is going for the jugular.
Gabriel can animate this Restless Anchorage to save some life here. Just jump block. Maybe not the worst play ever.
And he goes to 2.
I like this. Dom then main phase 2 Winter Night Stories hits 3 lands off the stories. Going to discard Spybluff Canal and a mountain. And then it's going to play Surveil Land. Actually, he's going to hold it.
I think he realized he already played a land that turn.
That'd be a good reason not to play another land. I missed it. And Beza off the top.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, this might actually even be the everything mode. I'm not exactly sure on lands. I mean, 2 of them are creatures right now. Looks like we're tied on lands.
Yeah, tied on land. So no treasure, but 2 fish, 4 life, and a card.
Yeah, very nice stabilizing play here from Beza. Into a stock up. That's what you like to see if you're Gabriel Roberts. And Get Lost found along with the Shiniest Tidebinder. And we see, there you go, body language-wise. Gabriel has sat up, ready to game now that we're back in it.
Now, Dom has another Floodmaw in hand, right? So you can bounce the Beza, then I guess you make a haster with the Wild Ride, but that's still not enough with 2 blockers from the fish.
Yeah, it's close, but no cigar here. Now, if you have a VV, you can maybe go a little crazy with it.
So Wild Ride, the Stories. There's the Fear of Missing Out. We know about the Floodmaw, the Wild Ride, and I think just a couple lands are the last cards in hand.
All right, we're going to start with Winter Night Stories. We found Profs. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, that'll make the Beza no longer that good of a blocker.
And
we pump the small Soulstone up to a 6/6, be 7/7. And then you have 5/5 that could double block the 5/5, but then you just Floodmaw the fish and they lose the Beza for nothing.
Wild Ride was again the draw here for Dom.
And you see here how powerful this deck is. No VV called in shenanigans the entire time, but easily grinding out this control deck. So much card advantage from Prosthetic Memory, Winter Night Stories, Quantum Riddler, the creature lands giving him utility from otherwise useless cards, all coming together to give him this huge resource advantage over Gabriel Roberts against playing a control deck, the type of deck known for being more resource heavy than others and winning that battle consistently. Dom is winning that battle decisively.
All right. Attacking here. Looks like we got a double block on the 1. and then a chump on the other. This end of the Flood Maw on the fish. Oof. All right, and then Dom just gets to pass the turn. Steam Core Scholar in hand picked up off that Winter Night Stories. Even if a Day of Judgment comes down, we're going to have a near lethal threat instantaneously. And then with Wild Ride in hand, it's going to be very bad here for Gabriel, as he's sort of just stuck staring down these lands that he can't quite answer.
Even if he had something like a Day of Judgment here, the multiple Wild Rides sitting in Dom's hand allow him to create a lethal attack out of nowhere.
Very powerful position here for Dom. Navigating this game really well, and like you were saying, really showing off the true power of the VV Cauldron deck. It's not all about 0 to 60. Sometimes you just get across the finish line. And it looks like Gabriel thinks that they have some combination of cards that can maybe stabilize here. Remember, last turn we did get to stock up. All right, looks like we had another stock up. Consult the star charts. A couple lands. I couldn't see the other two as they were picked up. Star charts is a way to look at a lot more cards, but at that point, you're getting choked out on mana a little bit.
Well, let's see what he finds. They've got to be good. I mean, he knows about one of the Wild Rides, so he can't feel comfortable tapping out. Maybe that's the only play he has.
Okay, Elspeth Archangel makes some dudes. Yeah, and Dom's sort of like, you're at this. He's like, yep. And then Dom, Steam Core Scholars, Wild Rides, lethal. And looks like Quantum Riddler for the style.
Yeah, just fly in the air.
And that will do it. Noah Smith did end up winning game number 2 of that Pauper match, but it's a team tournament here, Ross. So the team of Dom Harvey wins, and we're going to get an interview with them here in a second. And really kind of showing off from both of the decks that we saw win their games there, just how good they are at kind of playing normal Magic, all while sort of presenting these unfair draws, right? Felia and Quantum Riddler, the Ghostly Flicker stuff, the VV stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Dom even had Cauldrons and VVs in his deck there. He drew a bunch of cards. We never saw a single copy of them. And the Rest in Peace still had some impact on the game, stopping Delirium, stopping Harmonize on Winter Night Stories and Wild Ride. But it does put you down a card. And that makes the aggro plan even more powerful. Your opponent is now down a card in this attrition fight, and he's able to just win a very normal game. So impressive stuff from Dom. As far as the Pauper goes, once again, we sort of got to see both players do their thing a little bit, a little less so in game 2 as we panned away after the judge call, but you get to see a lot of what Pauper is about. That grindy card advantage, that's where the power of the format is. And it's because you don't have those really powerful mythic rares floating around in the format that can undo all the card advantage from your opponent. So there's no decks that are built around, singularly powerful effects. It's all these neat little synergistic combos. And that makes the format unique and really cool.
Yeah, it's very special in that way. I hope we get to see maybe a little bit of like the burn red action, because that I think is the one thing that's like so different than everything else that's going on, right? And I think is kind of that checking role, right? It's sort of like, hey, if we're gonna like plot around and do stuff forever, I'm not cool with that. We're gonna have a timer on this game.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives that check on the metagame, and I do believe there is a burn deck floating around near the top table, so you may just get your wish, Mason.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for that and Elves. I know Elves is a deck that you and I both really enjoy. The Pauper Elves deck has some really cool stuff going on in it. And some cards that like people just sometimes can't beat. Like I believe it's Well Wisher is his name, the tap and gain life for the Elves. I've seen people just like I can't beat that. You have too many Elves in play.
Yeah, Well Wisher, Timberwatch Elf. They're quite a combo. I remember drafting them in Onslaught.
That's cool. I think I was learning my ABCs around that. So that's pretty cool. It's crazy how life works out that way. As it does look like the players are sitting down the interview. We'll be having with them in just 1 second here. I'm excited to see how they are all feeling here. Yesterday, I don't think Dom had the greatest day in standard. I'm curious if he ran something a little different. We're just going back to Cauldron. We'll find that out in a second here. But yeah, it's, a good start to this team tournament. 7 rounds, definitely, not locked up or anything like that, but can't be unhappy with the 2-0 start. Or 3-0 start, excuse me.
That's right.
That's right. Well, Dom, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well. We got to see some magic action. We got to see a little bit of all of you all winning in that round, which was nice. You know, the judge calls kind of worked out where we were forced to go to standard. So well played on your team's
Sorry
part.
about that. Yeah.
It happens. and so we just wanted to kind of check in and go down the line here and see if everyone. Dom, we'll start with you because we know this deck is newer on the scene here with Vivi College. And what made you want to play Vivi?
Well, it's really broken and really fun. Won back-to-back Magic Online challenges with it, and having a blast. So yeah, it would be ridiculous to play anything else, I think.
I think that makes total sense. Let's
there's
head on over.
There's a couple aspects of your list, though, Dom, that I wanted to highlight here. Main deck Null and Spell Pierce, I assume, are nods to the mirror, and expect me to play it a lot.
The mirror, and also they tend to be versatile against other things too. So against Blue Eye Control, for example, often they're going to have Seam Rip, Starcade main deck. Spell Pierce, obviously, best card you can really have against a control deck. But in the format this narrow, you can play these cards that look pretty targeted, but actually are more flexible than they look.
And then, Then the other thing I notice is most of the time we see a split between Tursa and Steam Core Scholar. Used to be the splits favored a lot more Tursas. Now we're seeing more Scholars. You're on 3 Scholars, 0 Tursa. Tell me about that decision.
Yeah, I played the other split yesterday, so 3 Tursa, 0 Scholar. 4 Mako, just a more proactive, more aggressive list. This is quite a different take. You'll notice there are no Makos in my list either. So this is essentially a Riddler deck as much as a Vivi Cauldron deck. And I mean, both cards play nicely with Riddler. Every Magic card seems to play nicely with Riddler. But when that's your philosophy, that makes more sense, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense to play cards like a Null when you have so many, draw discard effects, right? Like, yeah, I get to actually move through this. We kind of learned that with Fable, the Mirror Breaker, and some of the older formats. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Seems like a really great innovation. Wouldn't expect anything less from Dom. Let's move over to Modern real quick. What did we get here? How do we end up on Esper mid-range? Because we've talked to some of our players. Everyone feels like Modern's really open right now. And there's like 10 different decks we all think could win this tournament. So how did we land here?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree that I think Modern is like a really open format right now. I've been enjoying playing it a ton. I'm not super traditionally on these types of lists, but what I will say is ever since like Blink or Sewers came into existence, I was like, let's try this out, and I've really enjoyed it. I still remember like the very first event where Tetramos was legal. I'm like, we should probably be playing like 2 to 4 of these, and did very well at that event. So honestly, I took a pretty big step back from Modern for a while, was jamming Standard, and then when this event came up, I was like, let's revisit this. I see Esper Blink is a thing. I played around with Orzhov Blink too, but just having Consign and Psychic Frog is so good. And then obviously, like as Dom mentioned, Riddler just plays well with every single card in existence. So you might as well play those Riddlers too.
Riddler, if you're from Quebec.
Of course, sorry. Rizzler if you would as well.
He goes by many names.
Of course.
All of them feared.
Yeah.
And then Popper. I mean, I've seen this Tron deck some online for sure. Do you play a lot of Popper? Was this something that looked cool? How did we end up here?
If I'm being honest, I tried like a couple different things. Like I tried High Tide, I tried the like Jund Wildfire deck, I tried a couple other things, and the Tron was like, it felt the most like powerful when it was doing its thing. I haven't played Popper a whole lot since I used to play the Brute Scale deck, obviously when that deck was just broken. Since that got banned, I haven't really found like a deck that I'm super in love with. And it was also kind of a card availability thing. Like I wanted to try Spy, I couldn't find Winding Ways. I'm sure if I tried harder, I could, but I was like, I asked them, they're like, how much do you guys care? They're like, play what you want. Like, don't work yourself too up.
We asked after the last round, so what are your good matchups? And there was a pregnant pause, and I was like, okay, that's fine, don't worry about it. So
it definitely was not mono blue from the first 2 rounds.
If I'd been warned about that, I would have said, could you please play a deck that has some good matchups? But it's fine, we're figuring it out.
I will say I am the weak link on this team. I will accept that, but I mean, try to win some games.
The weak link is still pretty good.
These guys have carried. They've won both their matches the first 3 rounds. So
At least this one I won a game. I was going into game 3 when you won. So.
You won it decisively. I'll say that. We were watching. He did very well. He started growing, doing crazy stuff. The opponent was sort of just playing their stupid gates, doing what they could. So, hey, I'll back you up. You were doing your best. Your deck also just takes 55 minutes to win. So, when you win, it's going to be near the end.
Maybe you found a good matchup. Maybe Coggates is the matchup you need to run into for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, my opponent said it was bad for them, so I'll believe them. They seem to have played a lot more than me, the format. So
there you go, Dom. He found his good matchup.
Yeah, there we go. Just got to play more of that.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking a little bit of time to talk to us. We'll hopefully be seeing more of you as the day continues. Go take a rest, and we'll talk to you all later. Ross, it's time for us to take a little bit of a break here before the next round. This round got a little bit delayed because of some technical issues. We're going to double check everything and make sure that we are good to go right at the start of round 4. So we're going to take a break right now. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.